If anyone has been watching Paramount Importance videos for the last, few weeks, you would notice that I've been sailing around French Polynesia. And within that time sailing around, I've come across someone who is quite remarkable. And with the limited microphone gear I've got now, so if you're an audio listener, I apologize for the lesser quality than the studio, but there's someone that I could not go past not giving an interview, because what you have accomplished throughout your career and life has been absolutely remarkable. And every night that you seem to be having a beer with us, there's a new story, a new thing that's just absolutely mind-blowing.
Paramount Importance.
So today who I'm speaking to is Mark Synnott, who is a professional rock climber, expeditionist and author. You're a member of the North Face athletic team, and you're one of the most prolific big wall first climbers of your generation, climbing with people like Alex Honnold, who people would know from Free Solo, of El Capitan. And you've done numerous expeditions all over the globe, climbing Mount Everest, searching for Sandy Irvine's body, sailing through the Arctic, investigating the Franklin expedition, and numerous films on Nat Geo, Disney, Netflix as well.
Is anything on Netflix? Probably, yeah. It seems
there's just so many things.
Some stuff out there.
In one way, I can't believe that I've run into you out in the middle of nowhere, but in the other sense, it's probably the most likely place to run into you is out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, well, vice versa, like you're running into cool people, but so am I, like yourself, and we really enjoyed your presentation the other night, and I could see how you could easily just end up on a similar path, to the
really
one that
I
have followed, which the essence of it has always been for me, how can I get my passion and my work to be on the same track, not even parallel tracks, but the same track. So what I would choose to do purely for fun, or I would pay my own money to do, is my work.
Yeah.
Because when I was young, well, I grew up with a dad who was a banker, and we had this ski house in the mountains, and we used to go there every weekend, and we would drive 3 hours in the car. We'd pick my dad up on Friday evening, and we would drive up to northern New Hampshire to this place where my dad loved to get away. And I mean, for years and years, I've done that drive probably thousands of times. And I would sit in the back seat of the car, and I would listen to my dad talk about what it was like to be a banker. There was nothing else going on. There was no video games back then. There was we didn't have Game Boys or whatever. It was just me and my sister sitting in the car, and my parents were having adult conversation in the front seat. So you just sit there and listen. And my dad would be venting about all this stuff that was going on at the bank, and it just sunk in so deep into my little head. Okay, whatever that is, professional world, banking, anything like it, that is no fun.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's a very exciting life.
But
you've gone the complete opposite. You've gone.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of lucky that I had the opportunity, where I could sort of do whatever I want, but as far as how it all turned into work, it was just total serendipity and coincidence, because I didn't have the plan. I didn't set out I'm going to become a sponsored climber, and I'm going to writer and do filmmaking and that kind of stuff. At the core of it, well, I just had one thing, which was my passion for climbing. And that's what drove everything. And actually, when I got out of school, my dad, being kind of on a pretty straight and narrow path himself, was oh, okay, cool. We got to start thinking career. What are you going to do? And my response was yeah, well, I'm just not going to have one, because I looked at all that, and then it seems pretty lame, and I don't see anything that I like So I'm just going to pour myself into climbing and kind of like drop out of society and like just not give a shit. Like I wanted to live in a little freaking hut and be a hermit and like not have anything to do with normal
speaking to
society.
My little self. Like 100% that is what I wanted to do. Is that when you left, is that when you went to go live in the cave? Because you mentioned last night that you lived in a cave for 7 years.
Yeah, off and on for 7 years. Yeah, I didn't, I think that's part of the reason like why things worked out is because I just didn't give a shit, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, all I want to do is climb. But I did have like ambition, if you want to call it, to do like big things. I wanted to go like as big as I possibly could as a climber. And the reason why I was in Yosemite and I spent all those years in the cave is that I was paying my dues and learning kind of like the craft or like the trade even, you could call it, of big wall climbing. So like going up big cliffs, and there's tons of those in Yosemite, but it was all a means to an end. It was like the best time of my life, like looking back, but at the same time, it wasn't an end in itself. It was supposed to be a stepping stone so that I could then go and find cliffs like the ones that they have in Yosemite that are out in remote places that nobody knew about, and to like pioneer new routes and like just kind of like explore, you know, and travel and see new places and obviously like meet local people along the way, and then have like this intense like solidarity and camaraderie with like my team, my partners. A lot of the stuff I did was just with like one other guy, and so that was, you know, a really big part of it. And so I just poured myself 100% like into that goal, and it was like my passion that was driving it. And then the other stuff just sort of like happened randomly. It was never a plan. I was just going to be a hermit. I was going to live in the cave, or maybe like at some point I would transfer to like a little hut somewhere that would have like. But
there would have been one point where it would have switched for you, where you would have been, because you said you're a writer, so you'd have this creative mind, and then you would have thought, like, oh, maybe I can turn this into my career.
So what happened was I graduated from college in 1993. I had a degree in philosophy, and that's like not super bankable. Didn't matter for me anyway, because I didn't really have a plan. I was going to specifically not have a career. I thought that was a possibility, which I guess it is, but it turns out it's like a bad plan. Now, being 55 and having a family and all that, yeah, it's good to have a career. So I specifically decided that I should do construction, because I saw like other like noteworthy climbers were doing construction, and it was something where you could have a transient lifestyle, where you could build for like a couple months, 2-3 months, and then make some money, and then go off and climb for 2 or 3 months. That's going to give you like enough time to go on proper like expeditions to the Himalaya and the Karakoram, the Arctic, and like different places that I wanted to go. What I saw about like having a real job and like what I called career, like the professional world, is like I was told you get like 2 weeks off, you know, maybe a little more. And I just thought, well, that's not even enough for me to do like one small climbing trip. Yeah. You know, so how's that going to work? So I'm going to specifically not go for that. I'm going to do construction instead. And then I went to Colorado. I executed the plan. And I started building. I learned. I became like an apprentice carpenter, and I kind of like worked my way up to being like basically like a journeyman carpenter. And I had this kind of like Yankee Protestant work ethic from growing up in Boston and from my dad just being like a super hard worker. and a lot of the people in Colorado were not working as hard as me. So I would like sometimes literally be like working in circles around people, but the end result of which was that after we would finish a house, I could go to my boss anytime and be like, hey, I'm going to take off. I'm going to go to Yosemite. I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to do some climbing for a while. And he'd be like, no problem. You've got a job when you come back. So I eventually like worked my way up where I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go and I'm going to do something big. And that was that expedition that I was telling you guys about, the Polar Sun Spire.
Yeah.
That our boat is named after, where we spent 39 days on the side of the cliff. And it was, you know, just about almost like a mile high, like overhanging, like spire coming out of the ocean, and a real epic adventure.
Well, 39 days on the side of a cliff, like it is.
Yeah, I mean, it perfectly prepared me for being a mariner and doing like ocean crossings and stuff.
There was a crossover.
Yeah, like, I mean, I didn't do sailing back then, but when I became a sailor and I started like the whole endeavor of becoming a mariner, you know, there's this point, especially if you're doing like offshore sailing, where you're like, oh wow, like this isn't pleasant, you know, you're like, oh shit, like I'm on a freaking crazy carnival ride. I don't really know if I want to be on this, or like, how's this going to go, or whatever. And I could just think, like, I had like internalized like a lot of suffering from climbing. So I could just be like, oh, well, how long is it going to suck for? And they'd be like, oh, that long? And you're like, I could suck it up for that long. And so it all just like, it really, in terms of like mindset, you know, it really like prepared me well for being a mariner and for sailing offshore. When I got back from the Polar Sun Spire expedition, I was supposed to go back to my job doing carpentry in Colorado. And as credit to my dad, who was the one who, he said to me, wow, you know, this is kind of an incredible thing that you did. You know, have you thought about doing lectures? And I had never done one. And I was like, oh, well, what's that all about? But my dad was doing that. At that point, he was working as a consultant. He had written some books. He was traveling around the world, like doing lecturing and talks and presentations and stuff. And so he coached me a little bit. And I'm like, okay. I made a one-page flyer, like Polar Sun Spire, Mark Synnott, 39 days on the cliff, picture, come hear the stories. Went to the library. I got the book that had every college and university in the U.S., and I wrote down the address for the student activities office. Then I did every outdoor store. I researched it, and climbing gyms, and I made a mailing, and I sent my flyer. I sent out hundreds of them. Then I followed up for everyone, and I got, I think, maybe like 25 or 30 shows lined up, going all the way from like New England, where I was, to the Southeast, to like Alabama, Midwest, Desert Southwest, California, Pacific Northwest, Western Canada. And I was charging $250 for the show, which is how much I was making doing carpentry, roughly. And so I got 30 of them. I called my boss. I'm like, dude, I'm out. I'm going on this thing. I put all my stuff in my Subaru and left like a little slot on the side for my sleeping pad. And I just got in the car and I just like took off and drove around.
And that's where it all started.
Doing my talks, climbing in between all over the U.S. And and then I've like some other opportunities came up. I got some writing gigs. Then I like got invited to go on some expeditions with the kind of like some legendary members of the North Face climbing team. And they opened the door for me. And then all of a sudden I saw this path that they had not mentioned at the career counseling office when I was in college, which was basically like professional climber. And you go on expeditions, you have sponsors that pay for it, they pay you to climb, and then you do media to support it and to feed back into the brands, you know, that are supporting you. And the media was magazine, TV, and presentations. And so that was in 1996, and now 2025, and I'm still doing the exact same shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on a boat now, so I guess I'm taking a little hiatus, but it, like, as it came together, I was like, oh yeah, like this is it. This is like my dream job. I'm just gonna like work this super hard. And they're like, you know, like talking mid-90s, there weren't like that many people who were doing this kind of stuff. So I was able to carve out a little niche. And I think maybe that might be a little bit harder now, but.
Definitely, but I think there's still so many opportunities in different ways. It's just got to find something a little bit different. For you, you've established yourself, but for someone like myself who's trying to find somewhere in that area.
Well, I mean, the reason why I really thought that you just had it is because I think that the single most important ingredient is the passion, and like kind of knowing what your path is. And it seems like if you have that, then the doors just like have a way of opening. And I think the reason why is because older people who are more established, who are the ones that are like the doormen, the doorwomen, a lot of them like had that same passion, you know, the fire, like caring deeply about stuff. And when you see that in a younger person, like when I see it in you, it like fires us up. And we're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I wonder if I could make something happen, like help this person like people helped me. Because you need some lucky breaks sometimes, you know, for things to come together.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. My boss, I was not the brightest student in the class. It wasn't in the top. In fact, I was probably like either midway, maybe a bit below, but my boss took me before I even graduated university and hired me. And the way I remember him saying a few times, like he knew me from my very first year of just how much passion I had about the marine community. And
you can see it. Like it's a really cool thing, and it's like out here, like in this community, it's not that rare because it's so hard to get out here in your own boat. And like the type of person who's going to be able to pull that off, like that's why we're all having such a good time together, because it's like a kindred spirit, you know, like solidarity. But like back home, it's a little more rare, you know, and like not everybody has it.
No, I think a lot of people go through the paces of life.
Yeah. And, you know, as a parent, I feel like that's my number one job, is to help my kids to find that. Whatever it is, you know, and I have to remind myself, and I have been very like forthright about the fact that it doesn't have to be what your passion is, Mark. No. And it's probably not going to be. And it's better probably if it's not, because like the stuff I've done is so dangerous. You know.
Well, I hope we do get to some of the stories. Cause
so yeah, like. It's really important to find that. You know, and so as a parent, what you're trying to do is like introduce your children to like lots of different things, hoping like they find that thing that lights them up. You know, and then like giving them the opportunity to pursue it. So that's what we're doing with Tommy, and you found your thing. You know, with the sea and the estuaries in particular. And it's just so cool, you know, and I love.
I think the aim of this, we've got like the motto of this podcast, well, Paramount Importance in general, not just the podcast, is that like change doesn't happen from instruction, it happens from inspiration. So everything that we're trying to do is just like inspire people to want to change and make a difference in the world. Is that sort of to try and find that, help other people find their passion to want to do things. I do want to jump back into the Polar Sun expedition, because some of the stories there, and then we will go into some of you mentioned that you did some scientific expeditions, which I have no idea anything about them yet. But 37 days on a rock face.
Yeah.
It means you got to take up all your own food, water. Yeah. You're also sleeping on the cliff face.
Yes.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty bizarre thing to do, I guess, because you like, you know, you might like ask the question like, why are you doing it? Like,
Yeah.
what's the purpose? You know, like, I mean, the idea is like the first ascent, you know, it's like you plant your flag in the top or whatever. But the truth is, like, people who are like, really like passionate about like climbing and like big wall climbing or there's all different branches of climbing. It's really more about like the experience and the process and the feeling, you know, of like just being up there and being totally committed to self-reliance and putting yourself in a place where you sort of have no choice but just to be existing in the moment. So like you probably like experience that and all different things that you do, like, you know, spear fishing, free diving, surfing, you know, I don't know what other sports that you do, but where it's like so intense that like everything else just falls away and you're just kind of there in the moment. That's one of the things that I think attracted me to climbing early on. And the thing about doing something like Polar Sun Spire, where it's like so intense and there's always like quite a bit of, you know, shit coming at you, you're in that place for like more than a month, just present in the moment. And kind of like, it's going to sound a little corny, but I feel like it sort of changed me, like in a fundamental way.
I can't see
like
how
when
it
I got
wouldn't,
back, I was living in Colorado, but I went back to New Hampshire, checked in with my parents. That's where I came up with like the plan to go out on that speaking tour. But I remember going golfing with my dad, like right after I got back. And it was like New Hampshire in the summer. It was all like, everything was like vibrant green. And it was just sort of like, again, it's going to sound a little cheesy, but it was almost like, it was like the whole like nature was buzzing, like as if I was on drugs, but I wasn't on drugs.
You just felt alive.
It's really hard to just describe, but it's like a very like intense like memory that I have in my head. And I kind of thought, you know, like before I could only find like that place of being in the moment, in the now, when I was climbing. But I spent 39 days in that place and I came back and I was like, I could just do it hanging out now. And so it was very compelling and like attractive to me. And I felt like I made a little step forward, you know, as the flawed human being that I am, in terms of like figuring out like what this is all about and like how to be a better person than I was.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess you could, that cliche saying of like you found yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're all kind of trying to do that, you know, the real Kurt, the real Mark. We're trying to peel away the layers and all the bullshit that we got covered up with from like stuff that's happened to us when we're in our lives and when we're kids and everything, and just trying to get down to like the core of who we really are. Yeah. And so like doing stuff like that, like doing a really intense climbing expeditions, I think
what
really
was it
helps
like
with that.
On the side of the cliff though? Like, because you constantly be looking down a long way. You got not much room to move. I can imagine if you're climbing every day, you'd be super sore. Like,
you're tired. Like, you know, when I tell people stories about this and they see pictures of the portaledge, they're, you know, and they're not climbers. They're like, wow, like what the hell? Like, how do you sleep in that thing? That must be so freaky. And it's like, well, it would be if you just went from not climbing to doing that. But if you paid all the dues to get to the point where you're like a good enough climber to do that type of shit, you've got hundreds of nights in portaledges before you get there. So you're going up the Polar Sun Spire and it's like sleeping in the portaledge is literally like going back to your house at night after work. I mean, we'd rappel down the ropes.
It would never be like that, but
we'd go down the ropes and we'd get to the portal edge. I mean, we would take our harnesses off and we would just like hang in there, like not even clipped in. I told you how we had that little like hanging stove that I built.
Yeah.
And we'd just put that thing on a little low simmer and run it in there as a heater, and we'd hang out, and we had a little bit of alcohol, you know, and
taking a little bit of alcohol that's a big call, right? Because like you'd almost think of everything to the gram of what you're trying to lug up.
We're hauling it up the wall.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a little bit easier to move the freight, and the wall's like really overhanging. But yeah, you're not bringing like cases of beer or anything, but you know, you could bring some spirits, not a crazy amount, you know.
But it's interesting to have that decision be like you would, you know, he was like, when you're packing, you'd go, okay, yeah, we can take this. No, we can't take that.
I'm sure there's some people.
But alcohol.
I'm sure there's some people who would just be appalled, you know. But the great, like,
but I think a lot of the trip would be, right, you correct me if I'm wrong though, would be the morale. And like one of those things would be trying to keep the morale, right? Because was it 3 of you?
It's really important. Yeah, I had one expedition where I was going into this super remote place, and we're like, okay, on this one we're like not going to bring anything like that. And my buddy looked at me and he goes, dude, why suffer? So
why suffer
yeah,
anymore?
the great thing about climbing, ultimately, like there's, you know, sort of like an ethical framework, but there's no rules. It's anarchy. You do whatever you want. If other people don't like it, well, that's too bad for them, you know. And like ultimately, like a lot of climbers are like that. We don't really care. We're just kind of doing our own thing. Not really hurting anybody. I mean, we didn't leave a big impact out there.
How much extra stuff were you lugging up in kilos?
That's a really good question. But yeah, a shit ton. We had 5 haul bags. As far as cubic volume, I'm not really sure what that would be or weight, but we do carry the bags. They have straps, so you can turn them into a backpack, and then they have these like inside panels, and you undo the straps, and then you slide them down in so they don't get rubbed off when you're dragging it up the cliff. And so you carry these things. They're freaking heavy usually. So like 60, 70 pounds, and we had 5 of those. Right. We didn't carry water.
So that's around 30 to 40
Water's
kilos.
8 pounds a gallon. We carried fuel, and we melted snow to get water. So we had to find snow ledges, and we had to make absolutely sure that we had stoves that were working impeccably. So we had multiple stoves, we had repair kits, we had all spare parts and all that. And we had stuff, you know, breaking, and you're just repairing it on the fly. It's kind of like being out here and sailing out in the middle of nowhere. Like if anything breaks, you just got to fix it yourself. Yeah. It's like that when you're on the wall.
I have noticed that my sailing time has been very short, but everyone has got so many unique skills, or learnt so many skills, would have been from that. Like they come from different backgrounds. And you just had to learn, which in your
everybody case, like in our little flotilla is super handy. We've done like many miles since we left Maine, and like the vast majority of it we've just been like on our own. Now we're in this little flotilla. There's like so many resources, like between these 6 boats, like all the spare parts and the know-how and you know, knowledge and all that. So yeah, it's like it's feeling like a lot more secure than it has on like, you know, some of the other stuff. Like we went through the Arctic, you know, and we were going for like weeks at a time and like not seeing anybody.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's like I want to speak really alone, you know? Yeah, alone.
So when you were trying to find the snow, was it like, did that make it quite hard? Like you had to take different alternative routes to like certain areas?
We never altered the route to find snow, but we were able to scope out the route from below so that we knew that there were spots where there were ledges that had snow. But the wild thing about Polar Sun Spire is that it has this kind of like big overhanging amphitheater feature that you climb through. And that took us about 2 weeks. But because it's an overhang, there's no snow anywhere in there. So we had to have enough water to make it through that section. And that section was like really wild because it was incredibly steep, and we were following this crack, and it was like an arch system. So we weren't going straight up. We were going like this on kind of like a diagonal line, and it was really steep. And it was so steep that you always had to have the rope connected back in below so that you could pull yourself back in to get to the portaledge of the anchor so you could go back to camp. If you just rappelled straight down, sometimes you'd be like 50 feet out from the cliff. We'd move our ropes up, you know, as I was explaining to you the other night, and we'd set a camp under a roof, and then we'd go out and we'd work on getting our ropes up the wall, rappel back to camp at night. And then once we got all the ropes out and we found a good safe place, we'd move the camp up. But we got to a point where, you know, we were like disconnecting these ropes as we went up. So we got to this point where we're looking down and we're like, there's not really any way to go down. You'd have to like climb back down the crack because it's so steep and traversing. You rappel off, you're just dangling out in space like a spider, you know, on his web. So we're like, oh, wow, holy shit. Like we kind of passed the point of no return. Like we have to make it up to the top. Like it really and truly felt like it would be impossible to rappel the wall. And that was, you know, like kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Everything just channeled into this thing like, all right, well, like, let's make sure we get to the top then, because we have no other alternative. And
wow,
and it was,
that must be quite a freaky, because
it's more freaky when you think about it here, or like when you anticipate it before. But when you're there doing it, it's all just focus on like the task at hand. And like, you know, for example, we'd get to a camp. We know we can't really rappel down. We know that we have to finish the climb, which is still like multi-week. We know that the only way that we can get water is by melting snow with our stove. And we'd set up the camp, and you'd be like hanging there in the harness, and you'd get the portaledge set up, and there'd be a guy in the portaledge, and we'd be like taking the stuff out of the bag and passing it in. If you drop anything, like it's gone. And there are certain things like that if you dropped, it would be really bad. Yeah. Like the stove. Yeah. Or your sleeping bag. The food.
It would be quite cold, wouldn't it?
It's all in bags. Yeah, super cold.
Obviously, if
there's snow. We had a negative 40-degree sleeping bag. So we developed this system where we had these little daisy chains with carabiners on them, and you'd dig down in the bag and you'd clip it in, and then you'd pass it up. And it was all done very like systematically because you would be so screwed if you dropped the wrong thing, you know? And so like when you're that focused, you're not really like looking ahead and worrying about like, oh, what if this happened? It's more like, let's just make sure like we're doing each step precisely in the right way. Yeah. You know? And then you've got the climbing. And you're like going up a cliff that no one's been up before. And that's like the gnarly part, because like you got to figure it out, you know? And it can be difficult. And you can fall. Moments? You can fall.
Yeah, I imagine you'd fall a long way.
You can rip your gear out. You can go flying, you know? You can get hurt. You could land on a ledge and break your leg, you know? There's like all kinds of like bad shit that could happen. But again, it's like, cool. Wow, like, let's be really careful. Yeah. You know?
Well, that's, I mean, pretty much
sure that something bad doesn't happen.
Living on the edge, like, no other way to explain it, really.
So like, great.
Yeah. I can imagine someone like, you just feel so alive. Like, you're like, this is, like, constant, as you said, you're in the moment, you're focusing on every move you're doing. You're in this amazing, like, area, landscape, you just everything. You're doing something
super
that
beautiful.
Yeah.
Everything is like sort of like custom built to like force you to just like sit there and just like be in awe of like where you are. And like you said, looking down, it's like really far down and all that. it is freaking spectacular.
Yeah.
So you're like, just, you'd be at the belay, like paying the rope out for the other guy. And I have photos where like people are like just sitting there like this, just like looking out like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff we do here,
Yeah. Was there some pretty dicey moments, some times that was like...
Yeah. I took one big fall where I like made a mistake. So sometimes, like if there's no cracks, there's nothing you can get up, you use these little hooks.
Yeah.
And you hook them into tiny little crevices in the rock. And we were like young and like hungry for the gnar, as we used to say. So we were like trying to push it like as hard as we could. So sometimes you do like a bunch of these in a row, and there's nothing to stop you, It's not like protection. And I was doing that, and I put one on. It was this little one where the point of it was frickin' tiny, and I put it on this little edge, and I had done several of them, and then the edge, it broke, and then the hook was somehow like still on, even though there's nothing there anymore. It's just like, it was just like, I don't know, like surface tension or something. And I yelled down to my partner, I'm like, dude, fucking get ready. Like, I'm going to take a huge ride here. And he was kind of like, whatever, like you haven't fallen, like everything's fine. And it was like a ticking time bomb. And then finally it was like, boom, and it blew out, and I started falling, and I had the rack. It was like this bandolier with like the pitons and everything on, and it's really heavy. So as I was falling, it was pulling me upside down, so I ended up going like straight down like this, like head first, flying with like ping, ping, like ripping stuff out of the wall, and then finally hit a good piece, and it held, and it was like all okay. And my buddy got all freaking thrown all over the place, but caught the fall. I was like, yeah, like freaking told you to get ready,
Oh,
didn't believe me,
because you would be like so high in the air. Like, are you above the clouds?
You're like, sometimes the clouds would come in below on the fjord. But, it was kind of like the thing. Well, it's your pitch, so maybe you need to just like dust yourself off and get your shit together and get back up there and keep going. Yeah. And so you always, so you had to do that. And I did. But I kind of learned that like falling off was really not ideal. So I was super careful, for the most part, like, because like after the Polar Sun, I went and I just like kept doing the same stuff, I just kept like looking for more of the same thing. And there was a while there where it was like, all right, what's the next biggest, gnarliest thing that we can do?
What was it? What's that? Everest?
The year after that, I went to like a rock tower in Pakistan, which is called Shipton Spire. So I did that in 1997, and we were successful. We were like the first people to ever stand on the summit of that thing, and it was like literally like a pinnacle where we had to take turns going up to the top.
Really?
And that was like the same kind of thing, totally epic, but it was in the Karakoram, instead of Baffin Island. I went back to Baffin Island in 1998. That was the one where like the older kind of like experienced climbers that were on the North Face team invited me and my buddy to be part of it, and that really like opened a lot of doors. That like got me in, and to a lot of new opportunities. 1999, we went back to Pakistan and we climbed this thing called the Great Trango Tower, and that was we did the first ascent of the northwest face of Great Trango Tower, and it was like a 6,000 foot cliff.
Jeez.
That was like the biggest, gnarliest one that I've done. I don't want to eat up your whole podcast with that, but when we go to the bonfire later tonight, ask me for some stories from the Great Trango Tower. Okay. Because there was some gnarly stuff that happened up on that one. Can you tell me one now? And then I'm going to ask you about the expeditions for the science. Yeah, so we were doing the climb with this guy named Alex Lowe. He was like when I was coming up through the ranks as a climber, he was the guy I was like reading about in the magazines. He was like my climbing hero. And he was the one who kind of opened the door for me to get onto the North Face team. we went to Baffin Island together in 1998, and then we're like, okay, like let's do this thing on Great Trango. We were at the top. We were at like 20,000 feet, and we got to this like summit ridge, and it was like gendarmes. So it was like a knife edge rock knife edge with like little pinnacles of rock sticking up. And we were going sideways and like going through them trying to get to the top. And Alex was leading, and he was like, he was on the cover of Outside Magazine. They said something like the greatest climber in the world. Like, he was very, very good at climbing and like super bold. And he was out on lead, and he had no protection in. So his rope was just going out in like one huge smiley face between where me and my buddy Jared were at the belay and where Alex was. And he was stemming. So he had his hands and feet out like this, and he was going up between the two pinnacles. And at one point he had to like push off and go over to the other one. And it was like this arête. So it was like an outside edge. And he was like pinching it.
Oh my
and we could see like that looks really hard. And he has no gear in.
Oh my God.
And no one's ever done it, so there's no way to know if it's even possible. But it's like right on the edge. Like he's going for it. And he was fully going for it and doing stuff like hooking his heel around the back and smearing his foot on the other side and doing all this body tension and stuff. And we could tell like, holy shit. Like, wow, yeah, I hope he doesn't blow it. And then he kind of got up to the top of the pinnacle, and there was a little dollop of snow on it, and the water was dripping out of it, and it just dripped down and it got on the edge. So he got right to like the move where you had to make it happen. He reached up and it was all wet and he couldn't get a grip. And we could see him, and he was going like this, and his hand was like slipping off, and he suddenly realized like, oh shit, like I fucked up. And he tried to go down. Going down in a arête is way different than going up. Like gravity's suddenly not your friend anymore for all the body English and everything you have to do. And he tried to throw his leg out to the pinnacle behind, and he wasn't close enough, and it went like that, and he missed. And he peeled off and took like an unthinkable fall that you can't take. He just went off the other side of the mountain and disappeared with no protection in. And it was a pretty long time. We were sitting there with like this tensioned rope running through this notch, going through the air and then through a notch and over to the other side. We were like, oh, like, holy shit, like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to get to him? Like, obviously he's hurt. And then all of a sudden the rope came loose, and we started reeling it in, and he popped up on the ledge, and he was like this, like, yeah, fuck yeah, boys, yeah, I'm good. And we were like, what? You're like, are you serious? And
oh my God.
So then he just goes back up to the same thing that he just did. And we're kind of like, I don't know, man, like, you don't have to do this kind of a deal. And got up to the thing where it was wet. He was just like, and just completely went for it and made it up. The story kind of goes on from there, because he later, like, after we got to the top, we were coming down, and he like lost it mentally. He couldn't like form a coherent thought or really like communicate. And we were like, oh wow, dude, he kind of like lost it. So we kind of put him in the middle, and we helped him get down. We got back to where we had stashed our sleeping bags, and it was just like this tiny little like snow platform, and we dug these little trenches, and we all went to bed. We thought we were going like bivouac for the night, and I got up in the morning, and Alex was like still sitting there, like he had been getting his gear together. But I should have waited until I saw him get in his sleeping bag, and he was just sitting there. I have a photo of it I could show you. And he I'm like, dude, what's your deal? Like, you didn't get in your sleeping bag? And he's like, no, man. He's like, I'm dealing with this stupid jacket. I can't get my jacket off. He's like, my jacket's all fucked up. And I like went over to check him out, and the reason he couldn't get his jacket off is because his arm was like all swelled up like this. So like when he fell, he'd hit shit. Yeah. And hurt himself bad, and didn't say anything. Told us that he was fine. We didn't check him out. We were like going for the top, you know. We didn't check him out super thoroughly. We didn't notice it. It got super worse overnight. I think he was kind of like hypoxic and like in shock, you know, from being hurt. And then we realized like, oh my God, he led that pitch. with like a busted up arm. It's like not even possible.
Oh my God. Probably adrenaline.
But he did it. Yeah. Holy. And then the story I'll tell you later at the bonfire was about like stuff that happened later on the way down.
Yeah.
More gnarly shit.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon I could talk to you for hours.
But so yeah, just like
hours and hours.
Yeah, so that was like 1999.
Yeah.
And then it just like, I just kept going.
Yeah.
And then, okay, because I kind of know where you want to go with this. I had a moment. It was like early 2000s. I'm on the top of this mountain in China, and I'm thinking to myself, I like kind of asked the question, like the philosophical check-in, you know, you're sitting in the mountains, you're like thinking about things. Who's getting anything out of this other than me?
Right.
The climbing, like, is like what I do, like, ultimately just selfish?
I don't think so. You're inspired. We could go back to inspiring, but I can understand where you're coming from at that point
I decided that
in time.
it was.
Right.
And like when I was young, one of the things that was driving me was like I thought that I had missed out on like the golden age of climbing and mountaineering. I thought I'd been born too late and there was nothing left to do. And I was like on this quest, like I got to find stuff that hasn't been explored. I got to find mountains that haven't been done. And like that trip to China was like such an eye-opener because like we went into this valley where not only was everything unclimbed, but like no people had ever been there before. There was a monastery, a Buddhist monastery, and when we got to it was a 700-year-old Buddhist monastery that was so remote that it had escaped destruction during the Cultural Revolution.
Wow.
And
well, was there still people there? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so
like
it's still
active monastery.
Right.
It was incredible. It was 700 years old. Like there was walls built around it made out of Mani stones that had been hand carved by monks 700 years ago.
Wow.
It was mind blowing.
Yeah.
We talked we had a translator. We did all this climbing. We saw this valley like behind the little mountain range, like further out. And it was like meadows and like turquoise blue lakes and forests, and we came down, we talked to the guys in the monastery and we're like, hey, what's that next like valley back? And they said, we don't know, we've never been back there. And we're like, well, you must have gone back there at some point, you know, it's not that far. And they're like, no man, we're like monks, we're praying, we're like doing other stuff. Like, what about the yak herders? They're like, nope, they're not going to go over a crazy mountain pass. There's tons of good pasture here. This is as remote as anybody goes. So we're like, pressed them pretty hard. They're like, nope, no one's ever been back there. And the place looked incredible. I mean, it looked like Yellowstone, you know?
Yeah.
And that I think was what led to me having kind of like the epiphany on the top of the mountain was like, okay, not only did I not miss out on the golden age, there's like huge parts of like our world that are still unexplored where you don't have to even be a climber. You can just hike back into that valley. It's still sitting there. I'm sure nobody has been to it. And it looked incredible. Obviously, you don't want to screw it up. But we're creatures on this earth just like everyone else. And if we, you know, all the other animals, if we can go into places and explore them and not hurt them, then like that's okay. And I think there's a lot of meaning and value in that. But I just sort of realized like, okay, like this quest that I'm on, it could kind of just keep on going forever. Like what am I going to do? Like, am I just going to keep doing the same stuff and just try to do as many first ascents as I can? And I ultimately sort of decided for myself, you know what, like, I don't think that's where I want to hang my hat long term. I want to do something that's like a little bit more meaningful. And I just asked myself, is there a way that I could take all these skills that I've built up and use them to do something like that has a purpose? Because climbing doesn't, it's like, it's kind of absurd. It doesn't have to happen. It doesn't matter if someone climbs a mountain or not. But like the stuff that you're doing, you know, science, like it does matter. It does have purpose because the world needs it to be healthy and to thrive and to have a better future. So yeah, it's a long story, but the question was, is there such a thing as climbing with purpose? And I decided that that there was, and that there might be like this world in which I could find a scientist who was trying to do their work in a place where they needed a mountain person to get them in, to get them out. And I started like looking, like, what would that be? And that's when I came up with the idea of going to like the Tepui region down in South America and the Amazon. And there are these tabletop spires that are like ancient remnants of this plateau called the Guiana Shield. And like hundreds of millions of years ago, there was like this huge plateau, and over geologic time, the plateau eroded away and it left these spires. So like if you saw like the Disney movie Up, that's a tepui. They're freaking incredible. They're absolutely, it's a mind-blowing part of the world. The reason why they're important to science is as the like erosional process like wore away, you know, the world around these tepuis, the plants and animals that lived on the top became isolated. And so scientists, mainly what they do is they fly to the tops of the tepuis by helicopter, and then they look at the plants and animals that live there and they compare them to the ones that live like in the jungle below, and they can do DNA and stuff like that, and they can figure out kind of like how evolutionary biology works and over what time frames. And so I knew that National Geographic had sponsored a lot of expeditions like that, where they're doing that type of scientific study on the tepuis, and I came up with this idea. Instead of flying to the top in a helicopter, what if we climbed up? We did a trek through the jungle, and then we climbed the wall, and then we got to the summit, and along the way we did like a whole elevational transect of the species instead of just sampling the ones on the top. And I pitched that, and they were like, wow, that's crazy that you came up with this idea. We have a proposal in from this biologist right now who wants to do something basically along those lines, and he kind of needs a guy like you. And so it was just like an incredible example of serendipity that I met this guy, Dr. Bruce Means. And so we ended up, we went on, hold on, let me think. 2003. We went twice in 2006, and then 2012, and then 2021. So yeah, we went on 5 trips together, where I supported him with his science. He specializes in frogs. And there's one frog in particular that he's really interested in, which is called the pebble toad. And the pebble toad, like, maybe we should get in front of a computer and I can show you like some of this stuff. There's a like a film on Disney Plus called The Last Tepui, about our last expedition. And there's some other films out there from the different trips that we did, but the Last Tepui is on Disney Plus.
Okay.
And so the pebble toad is called the pebble toad because, like, when it's threatened, it rolls itself into a little ball and it just rolls down the mountain like a bouncy ball.
Oh, I think I've actually seen that.
There's video. There's like a BBC video that's like absolutely amazing. I have it on my computer. I can show you. We could pull it up on YouTube. So I might mess up some of the science, but I will say that there's like something like 9 species of pebble toads. 7 of them exist only on the individual summits of tepuis in the Pacaraima Mountains. So the such and such pebble toad is on this mountain, and it's like named after that mountain. His cousin, who used to be the same as him, but over evolutionary time, because the land dropped away between these summits, evolved into its own species, is over here on this one. It's like 3 miles away. It's a completely different species that used to be the same. 7 of them on these crazy, beautiful, wild towers. And then there's like one of them that's down in the jungle below, and then there's one of them that is in a sinkhole inside one of the tepuis. And in 2012, I took Bruce to that sinkhole. And on a previous expedition, we had been flying out. Nobody even knew that this other tepui really existed, barely. It was literally not on the map. It hadn't been mapped. And we didn't really know that it was there, but as we flew over the top of it, we saw the sinkhole. It was 700 feet deep, and it had a forest in the bottom of it. So you had the tabletop rock tower, the flat summit with a hole going down 700 feet with a forest inside of it. And as we flew over it, Bruce grabbed me by the shirt, and he's like, "Mark, I need to be in that hole." And then he told me that, well, he had built this evolutionary tree for the pebble toad. And by sampling the DNA, and you probably know about this kind of thing, you can see like where the gaps are. Like there's like a missing link species. So what he told me was that missing link is going to be in the hole. And I looked at him like, there's no frickin' way that it's in that hole, you know? I'm sure there's some shit down in the hole, but it can't be like this one specific thing that you're looking for. That's too coincidental. But I just looked at him, and he's like a crazy adventure explorer science guy who has more passion than anyone that I have ever met. And I could see the twinkle in his eye, and I'm like, okay, I get it. This is just a great story. This is how we're going to get funding for our next expedition. Cool, dude. I'm going along with it. I'll get you in that hole. And anyway, that I think is really like my best story about like what happened afterward, and me lowering him down into the hole, and him being like 70 something, and like,
oh, he was 70,
kind of out of shape, and
he was 70 still going. What?
Him crawling around on all fours down in the hole for 5 days, and he found the frog.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, I can show you like some stuff. There's stuff. There's like a.
Is this the one that's on Disney as well?
Made. That one is not on Disney, but that one's on YouTube. Yeah, I think. I can't remember what it's called, but it's good. And Bruce found the damn frog, and it was what he said it was, which is unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. So in 2021, now Bruce is 80, and he and I are like still to this day, we're like scheming, you know, like because we have this awesome thing going, and we're good friends, and we get along well. And I'm all about like adventure and exploration. I just want to go to these like cool wild places, and he needs to do this science, which is important and which matters to the world. One of the reasons that it matters is because frogs are bellwether species, and frogs are dying off all over the world. And Bruce is going into these places, and he's been going to the Pacaraima Mountains for like, I don't know, 30 years, and doing like these population density studies and kind of mapping out like what's happening to the different species of frogs at different elevations based on the temperature. And like as it gets warmer, they have to move up because they can only exist within these like very like narrow sort of like climatological sort of environments.
You know, I'm going to be doing frogs in my PhD. Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're finding, like, what we found is, I've never spoke about it because I never wanted to, my boss told me to, and myself, like, to not give away our secret yet till we can get funding and stuff for it. But we're finding frogs in estuaries where there should be fresh water. And this is in 35 parts per 1,000. And the tadpole density in some of these, like, little estuaries is, like, almost as thick as the water. There's just thousands and thousands and thousands of tadpoles. So,
incredible.
and as you're saying that we're losing so many frogs, that these are, I was showing the other day in the presentation how remote these areas that I've gone to. Like, these are areas that people don't explore. We're hiking through some places that there's just no tracks. There's nothing.
Wow. Yeah, like the same thing I'm talking about. Like, when was the last time that someone has been here? Or, like, has anyone ever been here?
Yeah.
You know?
Probably not as remote as some of the places you've been, because, like, it's not as hard to, I got there and I'm not a climber and we're not climbing, where you're going up a spire.
That's a cool feeling, and that's, like... That sounds like an important story,
Yeah, I would love to speak to.
We can talk more about, how can you package it up and, turn it into something, or, like, what would I do if I was, like, really passionate about that idea and I was trying to put it together and turn it into something, because for me, well, the thing is, like, we all have to make a living. Like, I have to make a basic, like, I have 4 kids. I have 2 kids who've graduated college, 1 who's in college. I have Tommy. Like, you need money.
Yeah.
But I only want to make money doing stuff that I, like, really enjoy.
Yeah.
So, like, you come up with the idea. I was like, okay, like, how can we monetize it? But, like, in a cool, classy way, We're not going to be all mercenary, But could this be my job? Could I turn this into a project, that I could ride on for a couple years and then not have to worry about?
What was it like
stuff.
climbing Everest?
I mean,
did you get to the very top?
I did. I made it to the summit. I went up the north side from Tibet.
Yeah.
So it's the Northeast Ridge.
Is that like the pinnacle of climbing, or is it just something that's like...
It's not the pinnacle of climbing, and in fact, it's kind of like looked down upon by, like, core climbers.
Right.
Myself included.
Yeah.
So, like, I never thought that I would go there and do that. I kind of came of age as a climber in the 1990s, and that's when John Krakauer came out with his book, Into Thin Air, which was a pretty strong condemnation of, like, the whole scene that was going on there.
Right.
With the commercialism, the guiding, the whole, like, just sort of, like, cutthroat kind of every man for himself, kind of attitude. And so myself and, like, probably couple generations of climbers looked at that and were like, no, this isn't it. This isn't what climbing's all about. I mean, I very specifically, like, apart from Everest, like, all the stuff, I've mentioned some of the mountains, like, no one's ever heard of any of that shit. No. It's all just, like, super obscure,
I never heard of them until I started Googling them. Googling you.
And so, yeah, it wasn't just me, but there were a lot of us who were like, okay, there's Everest, like, we're just going to go this way. We're not going to go in that direction. And the whole, like, idea of it was tainted, I would say, in my mind.
But you did it to find someone.
Yeah, so that's, like, how it kind of came around, where I'm like, oh, wow, maybe I actually am going to go and do this. Because I was doing this thing that we were talking about. We were like, what's a cool story that I could tell that's going to get me out on an epic adventure where I can make enough money to get by for a couple more years? And I came up with the idea of trying to solve the mystery of who really was the first person to stand on the summit of Everest. And the history books tell us that it was Tenzing Norgay and Sir Edmund Hillary in May of 1953. But there were a number of British expeditions in the 1920s and 30s where they were trying to make the first ascent of Everest. And the third one, there were 2 climbers named Sandy Irvin and George Mallory who were last seen at 28,200 feet, still going strong for the summit. That's 800 feet from the top in 1924.
Oh, right. It's not, considering how much they've gone to get there.
29 years before the first ascent. And they disappeared. Like the clouds came in and they just kind of vanished into the ether. So there's always been like this question, could they have summited? Could they have actually been the first people to be on the summit? Mallory's body was found in 1999, and they were said to have been carrying this camera, Kodak BPK, this little pocket camera, and it wasn't on him. So people have kind of speculated, well, Sandy must have been carrying it, and nobody has found Sandy. So it's like a long story. I wrote a book about it. It's called The Third Pole. There's film, Disney Plus. It's called Lost on Everest, I think. But we did all this research. We had another expert who I found who had a theory as to where Sandy would be based on some eyewitness testimony. It's a very deep story. There's a lot of detail. But the expedition that I proposed was for me to go to these set coordinates up on the north face of Everest in the yellow band to see if I could find Sandy Irvin and find the camera, develop the film, and then see if it showed a picture of them on the summit. It was just I don't know, kind of a cool idea. Not totally unique, but we were kind of in the right place.
It's funny how you talk about it as it's just a brush off your shoulder. But I just climbed Everest, which is a mountain that's notorious for.
Yeah, so, just to kind of wrap that up, because it is it's a long story, but it wasn't just me. It was I had some partners, one of whom is this guy named Renan Ozturk, who's an incredible filmmaker and photographer. And Renan was the same with me, yeah, we don't really want to do Everest. But we went there, and we're open-minded, and we're hanging out in base camp, we're acclimatizing, we're working our way up to the different camps, we're meeting all the different people, we're meeting all the locals who work on the mountain, we're meeting the other expeditions, we're meeting the guides. And at a certain point, I remember looking at Renan and saying to him, is it just me, or is this actually a super cool scene? And he's like, yeah, it totally is. I thought it was going to be lame. And you're like, but it's not. All the people are super cool. They're supposed to be these fat cat CEOs with huge egos. And they're drywallers, from Ireland who worked for frickin' 20 years to get enough money to do this as their dream. Or some scrappy kid from India whose family got a second mortgage on the house so that the chosen son could have a shot at glory. The people were so gritty and real and cool. And all the workers on the mountain, the Tibetan yak herders, the Sherpa, the Chinese, all the different nationalities. The way that Renan decided to capture that was because he's photographing and filming everything, but as we'd pass people on the trail, because you're constantly walking up and down, he would do this thing where he would do a fist bump with the person, and then he'd hold his camera out here with a fisheye lens, and and then he put it into this montage, and you see the faces of the people and the expressions on their faces and the smiles and the eye in their eyes and the twinkle in their eyes, and it's click, 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 and he goes through them, and you're holy shit, dude, that's it, you captured it. The spirit of adventure that's inside of all these people. So it's kind of especially as a core climber, it's pretty unpopular and uncool to be actually it was kind of a cool scene.
Yeah.
Because it's also very fucked up, because there's some environmental degradation. There's a lot of people who really shouldn't be there. There's a lot of people who are dying.
Yeah. It's something 200 something a year.
But it's got two faces, and it's not just there's a lot of hate. Go onto the internet and look for a New York Times article about Everest, and then go and look at the forum. there'd be thousands of people in there hating the people who are trying to climb the mountain and just talking about how lame it is and everything. I would say that not a single one of those people has been there and actually seen for themselves what it's all about.
I'm not surprised with that. The internet warriors, right?
I mean, the people who like to say hateful things on the internet tend to have like quite a bit of spare time on their hands, it seems like.
Yeah.
While they're sitting on the couch trying to get to the bottom of a bag of potato chips.
Yeah. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Did you find any parts or remnants of Sandy Irvine?
We didn't.
No.
But there was sort of like a smoking gun that came about after the expedition, where somebody contacted me with some what I consider to be like really important information about what might have happened.
Right.
So I went to the coordinates, it was like around 28,000 feet. I had to go off the fixed ropes and just like go solo out into like the hinterlands.
Is this the part where the Sherpas are like, no, don't go there, it's dangerous.
Yes.
It's dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was, I mean, a lot of people, like, you know, didn't like the fact that I like went against what the Sherpas were saying. I tried to like explain that in my book, but it was like,
but there was no ropes.
Everybody knew like what was going on, and when those guys were saying don't go, they were like keying the mics on their radio so the Chinese authorities down in base camp could hear that they were saying don't go.
Right. Yeah.
But they were okay with it.
Yeah.
That guy locked my Sherpa. Like, I hung out with him afterwards. He came to my hotel room. I interviewed him. We went through the whole thing. We hugged. We were like, good. Like,
yeah,
it's all good. He ended up dying on an expedition.
Oh, really?
Like a couple of years later, I think, 2 or 3 years later.
On the Everest expedition?
No, I think he was on Makalu.
Okay.
It's really sad. He was a super good dude. So there's always like more going on. But yeah, it was a whole like very complicated endeavor that I have to explain it in depth in my book. I think it's a good story. It's kind of like my best story. The frog stuff is
I saw that you were like a New York bestseller and for multiple books. I think.
The first one was called The Impossible Climb, and that one was a New York Times bestseller, and that one was sort of like the backstory for Free Solo.
Yeah.
And for Honnold going up El Capitan. But I used that as like a tent pole to hold up a deeper story about modern rock climbing. And so yeah, definitely like proud of like all those stories that I've told. They're all like pretty different, like in book form. And I've kind of like, dug myself into a hole where now I guess I like have to be a writer, and it's really freaking hard.
I guess like for you, I'm assuming like you're a person that wants to be active, wants to be out there all the time, and then writing is kind of the opposite to that. It's a lot of sitting down.
Yeah, you're sitting in front of a computer. I had this thing, I was just talking to Hampton about it, where like when we were at home, I had this like incredible like pain in my shoulders and my neck. And it's because I was like sitting there like this on a computer every day.
Yeah.
And now I don't have it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going snorkeling and diving and walking around on coral here on these atolls and swimming and working on the boat, but I'm not sitting at a desk. Like when I write a book, I sit at my desk for like a year straight.
Yeah.
More than a year.
Really?
But like a solid year. Yeah.
Yes.
With like, and it's like I've learned it's really not that great to take breaks. You gotta just get in the zone and then just grind it out. That for me. If I like break away for like 2 or 3 weeks and go on like a climbing trip or whatever, it's like it's not good. Yeah,
you lose that motivation, that train of thought in a way, like long form train of thought or something. But
it's so weird that I like had a dream about that actually last night.
Oh, really?
I was like in the pain cave, as I call it, trying to write. totally forgot until this moment. Yeah, because I've been thinking about it a lot. I'm like, should I be riding on the boat? But
I think
I just
you need
don't
some time.
want
You need
to
some
because
time.
it's not a good environment for that, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't
I have to
imagine.
wait till I'm back on land. And also, I'm like fishing around for like the inspiration for like what's it going to be.
For the next adventure?
Yeah, the next
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Estuaries.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, the places where adventure and exploration collide with science or natural history or culture or conservation or psychology or like whatever it might be, but the key being like the adventure and the exploration. That's kind of like the fabric within which that other stuff can be.
Yeah. Here's an
examined.
idea, which putting it out, I'm not sure I was putting it out on the internet in the wild world, saying it now, but sometimes where the ideas can stem for someone. But there's estuaries are thought to be on every continent except for Antarctica, right?
Okay.
And the basic form of an estuary is the transitional ecosystem between fresh water and the ocean.
Yeah.
Antarctica's
Sure.
made of ice, which I'm assuming is fresh water. And then there's the ocean.
It is.
There's thought to be underground estuaries under the ice, but inside estuaries, there's usually always unique fauna that only live inside estuaries because of the change of habitat inside there.
Right.
And if there is estuaries on Antarctica, there has to be new species then. Well, species not yet.
The new species thing is that's solid gold. The adventure to get there, like you got to come up with you got to put it together. You know what I mean? Like, where do you think it is?
I'd have no idea.
Why do you think it's there?
Yeah.
And how are you going to get there? And what are you going to find? And to get funding, you want to be fairly convincing that you're actually going to like find something, discover something. Coming up short, especially if it, like if you're like doing like a bigger media project and it's your first one, you want to be successful. You want to find something. Like what I've tried to do with a lot of my stuff, like we didn't like find necessarily what we were setting out to do, but what I tried to do was like make the adventure of getting to that point so robust that even if you don't find anything, it still like stands up on its own.
Yeah. Well, like that Franklin story when you sailed through the Arctic. You never found Franklin, but you found pieces of information and then a physical piece.
It gave me like a vehicle for like telling the Franklin story in my way from the perspective of someone who went up there on that boat that's sitting right over there.
Yeah.
But like if we took the Franklin out, the story of our voyage is probably strong enough to just stand on its own.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of like what you should be thinking about, whether it's Antarctica or whatever it is.
My story probably isn't in Antarctica. It's just it's always been in my mind.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that would like if you want to do it like, as a film or, TV, or a book or even magazine, any form of media. I mean, my recommendation would be like that the adventure part of it is like so compelling that it would work even without the science. Then you make the science really good, you weave it in there, and then you have kind of like a winning combination where you can't lose. I mean, you still got to get out there and you got to like execute the plan.
Yeah, my dream when I first started was to go to the most remote places on Earth, where I thought was the deep, deep sea and thousands of meters of water, was to go into the submarine. And then later I sort of found that it's like you're doing it with like a team of 200 people, so like red tape everywhere. You can't actually explore. Right. You're going like to some pretty remote country, but usually it's with ROVs these days. They're not really sending down submarines, and that's when they sort of started looking into estuaries, and there was always a heap of passion for estuaries, but then I was like, I could find my remote adventure with estuaries.
You've got it. Yeah, you don't have to search too hard because you're already doing it, you know? It's happening. But also look where you are right now.
Yeah, we're probably one of the most remote places.
We're on an uninhabited atoll in the Tuamotus. And
Yeah.
Just saying. It's incredible. There's like a giant hermit crab right over there crawling by.
Yeah.
Our boats are all just sitting right out there.
I think there's one below me, a hermit crab.
Framed by the palm trees.
There's this one hermit crab just under here.
Yeah. If your goal is to go to super remote places, you are succeeding, Kurt.
Yeah, well, you are an inspiration. That's like, I can't believe I've run into you. And like, just even these conversations you've given me so much more inspiration and sort of a few pointers and tools of knowledge in how to go, where to go into the future. The sun has set behind us, and I know we both wanted to get to the bonfire tonight.
Yeah, there's a bonfire, so we can wrap it up. But the feeling is mutual. Like, there's some serendipity at play here that we met each other. We're sitting here, we're doing this interview. We're talking about ideas, which is the best subject, you know, for contemplation. But it can be like an ongoing thing, you know? Like you can continue to like hit me up with questions.
I
or
100%
like, you know,
will do.
like if you ever get
I'll try not to be annoying.
If you're like, if you try to like come up with like a really cool story, you know, that you want to sell and turn into a media project, you need kind of like a one-pager, you know, where like the written word, this is what it's all about. And you should be able to explain it in one page, one paragraph, and like one sentence. And when you get that together, I'm happy to check it out.
Yeah.
You know, like you can run it by me and I can kind of weigh in, I can read it, and then we can talk. And
that would be absolutely amazing.
But yeah, I can help you to like brainstorm and to pitch and see. Like when I saw you, when you presented for us all the other night, I was like, this dude should have his own TV show.
That means
that's really like, I was like, I just thought, I mean, you're like, you've got it, like, you know, in caps. You've got it. Yeah,
that means
you've got the right stuff.
World. I can't describe like someone
really
like
do.
yourself to say that.
You really do. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm looking forward to it. And it's probably like part of the reason why, like, we're here talking and all that. It's just because I'm psyched to see that same like twinkle in your eye that I've seen in so many, you know, cool people that I've met in my life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah. And then we'll go to the bonfire and we can tell some more stories. I can tell you about the descent from Great Trango and like, some of the others. Like there's plenty of good ones. Yeah.
Oh, you've done so much. It's absolutely incredible. But yeah, thank you so much for this.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Of course.